Hey, how's it going? It's Jessey here from the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast. I've got an amazing guest here. Her and I have been in contact for a little while now. Her name is Rhea Campbell, and she is just I don't know, she's just full of life, I would say. And, she's been through a lot in her career and her entrepreneurial life and as a land investor as well. And that's part, the land side of things is just a small gear in terms of everything that she's involved with and she does. I'm sure you're going to find this like a hugely inspirational episode here with Rhea Campbell. Anyways, enjoy this episode. All right, we've got our guest here, Rhea Campbell. Rhea, how are you doing?
Amazing. Thank you, Jessey. Great to be here.
Yeah, when we first started chatting, we found out you lived in my city here in Vancouver, Canada. Not a lot of people actually come through here, but you were here for a little while. How long ago was that?
25 years ago, I moved from Vancouver to Chicago. So
what a change, too, from Vancouver to Chicago.
It was a huge change. I miss Vancouver. It's a fantastic city, and I'm a little bit jealous that you get to live there.
Well, we deal with a lot of rain, as you know. So
yes.
Nonetheless, Rhea, I'm really excited to talk to you about everything that you do. You're heavily involved in land. You're also heavily involved with a lot of different other uh, assets, you could call it, investment types. And I'd love to understand how you sort of manage all of that kind of stuff going on. But help us understand, how did you get into land yourself?
I don't know if you just saw this, but I just bought a golf course and a restaurant and an RV park in upstate New York on almost 160 acres. Did you see that?
No, I did not. I'm off social media.
Oh, that's why. I just closed on it. So it's got a huge land component plus 3 businesses. And so we can talk a little bit about that because it's got this kind of cool land story that goes with it as well. But if you weren't on social media, you probably wouldn't have seen it.
Well, yeah, give us an understanding. How did you get into land? And I'd love to talk to you about running businesses.
Yeah. So I'm just a crazy entrepreneur, but I didn't start out this way. I had a very traditional upbringing, Canadian upbringing, and we tend to be fiscally conservative in Canada. You save your money. You hope you have enough money for retirement. My father was the CEO of a drug company in Canada, which is very different than the United States. I'm not a trust fund baby, but I watched my mom and dad, mom was stay home. She did work. She was an entrepreneur multiple times, but mostly stayed home after that. And so, but I just wasn't wired that way. I was always wired a little differently, but I was trying to follow the path that I thought was the right path, and it never fit. So I actually worked in the hotel industry when I left college. I went to college in Canada and the United States. And then I went to go work with Hyatt Grand Champions Resort in Palm Springs and worked my way up through the hotel industry. And so I worked for 4 seasons. I worked for Fairmont Hotels and Resorts. I was in operations. Then I was in administration. And I was in Vancouver. I left Vancouver. I moved to Chicago because I thought that was going to inject some new energy into my career. And quite frankly, like wherever you go, there you are. I woke up one day and I was like, oh, guess what? It didn't do a thing. And the truth is, I just really I was built to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't have anyone that said to me, go fly, little butterfly. So I kept trying to do these things that I thought, corporate environment, wear a suit, that's what success looks like. And it just I never felt successful. No matter how much monetary success I had or the trappings I had, it felt awful. Wasn't a fit for me. So fast forward, and I won't, I'm a little older, so I'm pushing 60, I'm 58. There's multiple chapters in there, but I'm going to speed up for the purpose of this podcast. In my early 30s, my father-in-law, he wasn't my father-in-law at that time. And he said, oh, you should look at commercial real estate. And I loved it. And it was sort of a blend. It was a hybrid blend between some entrepreneurial, but I went to go work with CB Richard Ellis. So it was suits, and I did tenant rep. So it was brokerage. I did office tenant rep. So I represented occupiers of office space. And for 22 years, I practiced commercial real estate. I spent many years with them first, and then I left and I started my own boutique agency. And somewhere in there, my husband, who's a physician at the University of Chicago, he decided that he wanted to start his own business as well. So he left and started his business many years after I had been running my business. Now, let me warn you, that's a more traditional form of real estate that I was practicing. And I'll tell you why this plays into land in a minute. So, and he left and he wanted to start a business, and we started a concierge medicine business. Sadly, his partner died 6 weeks after we opened our first location.
Oh my gosh.
She was young, she was 40. She was supposed to be the business side. And so I had to step in. So for the next 10 years, I basically ran both businesses with my business
Wow.
and his, and he was a physician. So fast forward, my mom was dying in 2023. And, these cathartic moments, right, where you really they're very emotional. They help you see things maybe a little clearly. And I woke up one day and I thought, if I don't get busy living the life that I was meant to live, it's going to pass me by. And someday I'm not going to have the chance to go back. And my rule is, you guys, no regrets, no regrets. And so right then and there, right, sort of as my mom was dying, she was, basically she took her last breath, and I said, I am going to live like this is my last day on earth. And I completely ripped the Band-Aid off. I stepped down from tenant representation and I joined a mentorship of other kind of crazy entrepreneurs for investing, in the world of investing. Now, this is not land kind of seeped in. So
Mm.
if you've ever heard of Pace Morby, he's this fantastic, unbelievable. I love him. He's my friend, my mentor, my partner. I partner with him on many deals. And I joined his Sub2 community. I know if you've ever seen that stuff on YouTube. I mean, I looked at it, I was like, that looks very spammy, but there was something about it. And so I jumped in and I learned everything you could possibly learn about the world of real estate, buying and selling. But, it's not just single family. And I own some single families, but I really transferred into larger commercial assets pretty quickly. And then land seeped in. And here's how
Mm.
land seeped in. It doesn't really matter to me what the asset class is, right? The skills are the same: acquisitions, dispositions, talking to sellers, negotiating, buttoned up paperwork, multiple layers of due diligence, right? Like those skills transfer from one career to another career to another career. So if you really think about it, right, in the world of hospitality, and then you transfer into commercial real estate, and then you transfer into the world of investing, and now you come into land. Great. What I loved about land so I had a girlfriend who said to me, hey, what do you think about land? And I said, I know nothing about land. I'm not interested. I'm doing my own thing. This was November of 2023. And she said, too late. You and I are going to do this together. And I was like, oh. And so we just jumped in with 2 feet. And, like with anything, you have to do everything. Well, I do. I have to do everything myself first. So I
Mm.
have to do the mailing. I have to set up the CRM. I have to call the sellers. I need to see the entire process before I can train it, teach it, systematize it, and set it up. I'm a huge process person. So it's very, very important to me that I set up the process, because once the process is set up, you go in, you tweak the levers, and the machine runs where it's supposed to.
Yeah.
So that was how I got into land. Now, at the same time, I was also doing commercial deals, and I'm a lender. So I have an entire lending business, just an entire platform of army of people that help to lend out my money. And then I also raise capital. So I've raised other people who said, like, I'd love to lend money, but I don't really know the process, or I'm worried about making a mistake. Sometimes they will co-lend with me. I call them co-pilots. They can actually be on title with me, and then we'll do all the paperwork, etc., so that it's not so scary for them. Maybe they have a small amount. Maybe they only have 30,000, right? And it's 160,000 that we need. They can
Wow.
co-lend, because I want people to have financial freedom. And I really believe that if you control your own, if you control the work, you do control the outcome. You can titrate it. You can work harder. You can work, less.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in that. So land, my very first deal, and I want, for anyone who's new into land, I want you to hear this. My very first deal, we started calling in November of 2023. Forget when we got it under contract. It closed. We sold it. It was an assignable contract, and it closed. We made $4,500. And it was a real estate attorney that sold us his land. And, like you think, God, you worked that hard from November until January, but we were filling our pipeline. Like, you got
Mm.
to fill the funnel, right? So there's top of the funnel, there's middle of the funnel, there's bottom of the funnel. And it doesn't start popping out until you've done enough outreach, enough marketing, whether that's mailing, cold calling, texting, whatever your choice of marketing is.
Uh-huh.
So that's how it started. And very quickly, We had a very big deal very quickly. It was 50 acres. It was multiple parcels. It was an older gentleman. Everybody wanted to buy his land. It was in Plant City, Florida. It had $175,000 spread. And he said, I don't want to sell it to anyone but you ladies because we were females.
To
Isn't
your
that great?
advantage.
Right? It was definitely to our advantage. But he said, you can't have an assignable contract. You have to buy it in cash. And so we were like, okay, well, we better not get this one wrong. And we bought it in cash. We brought in 2 private money lenders. One was in first position, one was in second position. And you might be thinking, like, why would anyone do second position on land? We bought it deep, right? It was nice and safe. We had a really good story. We had really good comps. And these were both people that I knew. Something went really wrong. I just cash them out, right? And not that I would want to, because it was $500 and some odd thousand. I don't want to do that. But if I had to, I would. And we actually gave them a chunk. We gave them a flat fee. One made $22,000. The other one made $28,000. We gave them big chunks of money.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your story in terms of how you sort of seeped your way into land. And I think we all get a feeling that's not the only thing you're preoccupied with, and that's
No.
probably a smidge of what you do. But we've crossed paths on the land side of things, and I know you've helped a lot of other people get into land. Now, you mentioned here filling the funnel. What does that mean in simple terms, and like what should we expect? I'll let you sort of interpret that question. What does it mean to fill that funnel?
Yeah. One of the things I think that I actually just put a Facebook post up about this in my investment group, so you won't be able to see it, but I was like, everybody wants an easy win. They want this is going to be easy. Land is easy. Wholesaling's easy. I don't know about you, but like none of this is easy. It's a process, and you need to use systems, and you need to be consistent, and you need to use parameters and have, I have a team, right? So we have SOPs, and we're adjusting to the market, right? This last year has been a massive adjustment, right? I know a lot of people have talked about it. We've felt the same thing. And so pivoting and adjusting as you go. Filling the funnel is, what is the marketing outreach that you're doing? And Pebble does a really good job, right? You make it really easy. We used another piece of software I won't mention here before we had Pebble, and we immediately switched over to Pebble because we were familiar with the boards. And once I realized, oh gosh, I can mail right from within Pebble, and everything is teed up for me there, it allows me to move. And we market at scale. So we do a lot of mailers. In fact, not this year, but previous years. I mean, sometimes we were doing $20,000 in mailers a month. Yeah, we would do a lot, because once you understand that this is a numbers game and that it's going to yield just a certain amount, I mean, you're not afraid of drawing down. Now, if you're starting out, you're not going to do that, because you're going to be a little bit like, ooh, I don't have unlimited resources, right? None of us have unlimited resources, but I know if I spend 50 grand, I know there's just a certain amount that's going to convert. Unless it's a total outlier, and then I'm like, oh, okay, well, we're drawing down a little further, but I have the wherewithal to draw down heavier than somebody who's new, right? So you don't have to do that. Well, I didn't do that when we first started. I was like, I didn't want to waste $5,000. Now, if I waste $5,000, I'm like, all right, that's too bad, but I know it's coming back, right? Because I have that data bank. I have that history. So it's outreach, right? I love mailers. Jessey, you make it super easy for us to just send the mailers right there from within Pebble. And what I also love is that those leads are popping right in to my acquisition channel, and my team, right, which is all international, they are literally picking it up and grabbing it from there. And I'm in Pebble, and I'm watching as things are moving around on the board. Now, I'm literally lifting the hood and looking to make sure that things are going as expected for the day. And then I'm moving on, and I'm buying $5 and $6 million assets. Right? So there's today money, there's tomorrow money, and there's generational money. My today money is land, right? And so if you think about this, I want your listeners to think about this. If you close one deal a month, and your spread is $10,000 or $15,000, that's fantastic. Now you get the proof of concept. You have all of the tools, right? You're doing consistent outreach, whether that be cold calling, mailing, texting, whatever your medium is, right? Pebble's designed to easily allow you to do any of those things. One deal. If you've got proof of concept, then you pour fuel on the fire. What if you close 5 deals, right? And then with your margins, right? So maybe you're making $25,000 a month, net. Great. Like that's a living, you guys. right?
Hmm.
Now, layer that with, oh, I want to buy larger commercial assets like golf courses and RV parks. You make this money. Now, I usually I don't even use my money to buy these assets. I'm usually using other people's money, but you could, closing costs, right? You've got money that keeps the lights on and allows you to do some other things. That's the way I layer land into my larger strategy.
You mentioned here today, tomorrow, and generational wealth. What is that? Can you break down that concept for
Yeah.
us?
So you got to have today money. You got to keep your lights on. You got to pay your staff. You got to pay your Ring Central. You got to pay your Pebble subscription, right? None of this stuff is free, and it shouldn't be free, right? These are tools that help you become very efficient and manage the influx of information. There's a lot of information moving around, right? So it's difficult to manage, but there's amazing tools that make it easy. So you got to keep the lights on. That's today money. Tomorrow money might be your cash flow or your equity multiple. Oh, I'm going to take the $175,000 that I made in land this year, and I'm going to use that to buy it. Maybe I'm going to buy into a deal. Now, I don't usually buy into a deal. I lend my money, and I'm a lender of last resort. You don't want my money. It's very expensive. But if you need my money, I'm here. So I will lend it out. That's how I make tomorrow money. But I also make tomorrow money on my equity multiple. So if I'm buying larger assets and then we're doing a cash out refinance in 2 years, we're buying it for 2.3 million. We're going to push up the value of the property based on a cap rate and NOI, net operating income. That's in commercial real estate, then I'm going to push up the value to 3.5 million. I might do a cash out refinance, and I'm going to put $500,000 in my pocket. By the way, that's tax free. That is not taxable money because a cash out refinance is not a taxable event. If you transfer the deed, that's a taxable event. So that's tomorrow money. Now, generational money is stacking assets like that, like cordwood. Here's a $3 million asset. Here's a $5 million. I mean, I own hotels, RV parks, mobile home parks, single family homes. I'm about to buy another RV park, restaurants, golf courses. That's actually your generational money. So when you have, let's say, $50 million in assets under management, you could do a cash out refinance on your portfolio. You can pull out. By the way, you guys, this is what the rich do. This is what the very rich do. They put debt on their assets to pull that cash out because it is not a taxable event. Then they take that cash and they go use that cash to buy more cash flowing assets. So land is your first piece. It is your today money. You cannot have tomorrow money or generational money without today money. So if you're a little younger and you're building, right, you're in building mode, land is a great way to start building.
I love that. Let's come back into sort of the tangible things that you were doing early on and you have done in the last couple of years. You've done a lot of mailing, and some months you've done more than others, and you may have dialed it back down certain times and whatnot. But we're big on mailing. I'm a huge advocate for mailing. Fortunately, we're starting to see some patterns with mailing in the data itself. And so I would love to understand, what are some of the learning lessons from a high level, maybe, or nitty gritty of mailing in general that you've sort of learned or that was a little bit surprised about. And again, you also get to work with other land investors as well that are getting started. Yeah, well, you tell us some of the things that you have seen in mailing that might be helpful for our listeners.
Yeah. When I first started out, I was just like everybody else. I was testing and measuring and making mistakes, which meant I was wasting money. Right? There's going to be some slippage, and your slippage is going to be bigger when you're new because you're learning, and you're going to. In fact, my very first mailing, which I didn't have Pebble, I had another piece of software, and I used Rocket Print, and I screwed it up, I screwed up the merge, and I wasted $1,500. And it was like check your mailing, make sure it's perfect. Good news is Pebble, like you don't have to worry about that. You're going to have the ability to do that in Pebble. I wasn't using Pebble at the time. We were using the shotgun approach. I'm just going to mail a whole bunch. So you do have slippage, but that was a way to bring in contracts and to create liquidity, create money, right? That did work. It doesn't work as well now, but it still works. It all works. Some of it works a little bit better. What we do now is we do more of a sniper approach, although we'll be looking. So just to break it down and make it very simple, I'm looking for counties, zip codes. I'm drilling all the way down to zip, where there is more property selling than for sale. I want really good, and I want decent velocity, and I want a decent amount of activity. So I know that there's more property selling than for sale. There's an imbalance. Great. That's the first step. Because I know when I mail to property owners that don't have their land listed. We don't do on market, right? We do direct to seller, off market. There's just a certain percentage that are going to say, great, let's talk about a price that's reasonable. Right or they're going to get the mailer and they're going to pick up the phone and they're going to call. Fantastic. You know somebody is a motivated seller when they have to read the letter and they pick up the phone and they call you. Amazing. The first hurdle has been met. The second hurdle is now that you have to have a meeting of the minds, the price that you want to buy it at and the price that they want to sell it at. And so this is where your negotiation skills come in, your rapport, relationship, right? How are you building that rapport and relationship? And I love a quick no. A quick no is great. I'm going to put them in my cold follow-up, my warm follow-up, and then I'm going to move on. And I love that Pebble gives me the ability to set up some automations. I can drop it in, my cold follow-up, and I have a sequence of things that are going to happen over the next 180 days without me even having to go in and touch it. By the way, you guys, that's key. You can be a one-woman show or you can be a 9-person team. And you still have the ability through the software and the automations to very quickly manage some of those things. And all of a sudden, when a seller then becomes warm again, they may actually respond to one of those automations. By the way, it doesn't look like it's automated. It looks like it's actually you. Then they respond to it and it drops back into lead in. Oh, they're interested, right? So we're now looking at sometimes not just county, we're going to zip. More for sale than more sold than for sale. Imbalance, lots of velocity, fantastic. But that means that we might have to mail to this little market and this little market and this little market and this little market. But it also means, think about it this way. People remember you when you stand out, right? So I do all sorts of little interrupters. I have every once in a while, I might actually drop an F-bomb. Right? It's actually an interrupter. It's like very unusual. You will remember it. Now, it depends on the circumstances, right? But it's an interrupter. It's, oh, wait a second. So think about your mailer as an interrupter. I mean, everybody's getting these generic mail like, we're going to give you a fast close and we're going to pay your closing costs. You and every other land investor. So how can you make yourself stand out? And I've actually gotten some letters from land that I own from land investors where they have a picture. Now, I'm a female, and so putting a picture, a lot of land investors are male, that might be beneficial. In fact, I had a guy who sold me, this is the property that I subdivide. He actually sold me his land because he said, you sound pretty. And I thought, amazing. Thank you.
All right, so you heard it. Rhea here is talking about mailers and interrupters, and I'm really excited to share some of the findings that we've had when it comes to what works for mailing. It's really hard to tell because you may hear feedback from somebody personally, but there are some nuances that you don't know when it comes to their marketing or mailing. Or you might get some insights from a print house, but they don't really get to see what happens when leads come in. And because everything is contained with your mailing and your leads and your communication, all of that coming into one place, we sort of get this really tight feedback loop. And I'm really excited to share this once again. I call it the winning postcard framework. I might be actually changing this title here, but I'm going to be running a webinar. Now, if you're listening to this, we recorded this and this is going to launch sometime in April. The next one is going to come up in May 2026. But if you're listening to this in the future and past that date, I most likely will continue to run this at least maybe for the next foreseeable few months. And if you want to understand the framework of what performs well, because we've done millions and millions of mailing, make sure you shoot us a message, hello@pebblerei.com. There's a little me talking on there. And you can also head over to pebblerei.com/winning postcard to join that upcoming webinar. It's completely free. I'm going to be sharing what I call the 2-layer framework, how and what performs well that we've seen in the data and across millions and millions we do. It's so funny because Rhea here calls it an interrupter. And so what are some really simple interrupters, but also allow you to build authority? Because at the end of the day, people who own land and want to get rid of their land are looking for someone to solve their problem. It's not going to be about fast cash or turn around in 30 days. None of that sort of boring language that you continually see on every letter template being shared there. That doesn't work. And I have data to show that. And I have something that shows that, something outperforms another format or another sort of structure when it comes to mailer over everything else. Anyways, if you want to learn more, You can head over to pebblerei.com/winning postcard, or you can just head over to pebblerei.com, book a demo, hop on a call with me. Have to share more. Anyways, enjoy the rest of this episode here with Rhea.
And then he became my friend on Facebook. And to this day, he's my friend on Facebook, right?
That's
So
amazing.
I sounded different. I had a robust conversation with him. You
Yeah.
know, whatever it is that you need to have that connection. The connection, the first thing that you're going to use for the connection, though, is the letter. What does it look like when they get it? Is it professional? Is it well written?
Mhm.
Doesn't actually even have to be that, by the way. It can be an interrupter. It could be a postcard. It can
Mhm.
have some different colors on it. It can have a picture, whatever it is, right? I would say A/B split test and measure. This seems to be getting a lot. I'll tell you, most of my magic comes when I get them on the phone.
Mm.
If I get you on the phone, there's no reason why we can't have a meeting of the minds, unless you're so far out there that it's crazy. And I will buy with just a little bit of margin because, right, I got a sense of like, I'm still going to be able to sell. It's okay.
Right.
Or I'll say to them, so listen, give me the ability to market it before I have to close. And let me make sure that I can absolutely buy this in cash. I'm not going to have any problems. Like I just tell them the truth. Most of the time, right, you've created a sense of trust, a level of connection that they feel like they know you. I know them.
Mhm.
And that's important. That's really, but don't ever forget we're dealing with people.
Yep.
We're dealing with people. And if you're likable, your letter, your call, your conversation, people want to do business with people that they like.
Yeah. I find that so interesting about the last subdivide project that you had. That that is just the reality of things. And I love how you call it an interrupter. Now, can you walk us through that subdivide project? Was there any surprises, any learnings from that recent deal?
I have several surprises and learnings, but I'll tell you about this one. So what did we buy it for? I think we bought it for $150,000. It's 20 acres. It's in Sopchoppy, Florida. It's on the Sopchoppy River. It has 300 feet of riverfront. It's a beautiful property. It's on a corner. It's like gorgeous. And it's along the route in the Panhandle from Tallahassee down to the Panhandle where they're doing all sorts of expansion. Looks like a total winner. And it's a minor subdivide, so it's easy to subdivide. There aren't major. We do have some wetlands, but we've got a good amount that's high and dry that's buildable. It's all good. So it should have been an easy win.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. You never know. It's going to be an outlier. You're going to be like, oh boy, we still have it, by the way. We still own it. So what we did was we marketed it as a subdivide. We were going through the subdivide process, breaking it up into 2 10-acre lots. Both of them have a little bit of wetlands. Both of them will have river frontage, and then they do have high and dry, so we can build on both of them. I think we're going through the PIN process right now. And my team member Amanda's taking care of that. So we thought it was going to be an easy disposition. There was land that's recently sold in the area, a lot of activity. I didn't have the right agent. She wasn't very responsive. I don't feel like she wasn't responding to me. So I'm certainly sure she wasn't responding to people that were calling to inquire about the property. So after I think it was like 8 months, 9 months, the listing is stale as all can be. I said, take it off the market. Let's do the entire subdivide. Let's get better photos. Let's clear some of the land. You've got to make yourself a beautiful bride. Nobody's going to marry me unless I'm, a beautiful bride. It's the same thing with your land. So, we think about houses, right? A fresh coat of paint, right? Maybe some power washing. Well, with land, maybe we have to put in a little bit of a gravel driveway. We've got to clear it a little bit. We've got to clear out some of the brush. Let's make it easy for the homeowner, if that's your exit, or the builder to see the possibilities. If it's rural recreational, can you make it easy for the guy or gal who wants to go out there and shoot guns or ride their ATVs to see how cool it's going to be, the experience that they're going to have when they're on their property? So I look at it through a very different lens now. So we're actually in the middle of where we're just about done with the pins. But if it doesn't sell as land, the good news is, right, because I'm an investor and I do a variety of different things, we're going to put mobile homes on it. Nicer, higher level mobile homes, land home packages, right? Yeah. Make sure you have more than one exit. Now, if you're just starting out and you don't know what another exit is, you don't need to worry about that because you may not know what those exits are. Just make sure that you maybe get an assignable contract, or make sure because sometimes it's hard to get an assignable contract where you can market it before you have to buy it in cash. So then what I would do is I would make sure that I do all of my due diligence, call the county, understand the setbacks if it's a builder, like understand all of these moving parts, and then go ahead and buy it in cash, right? When you have that level of confidence. And you're not going to get it right 100% of the time, but if you get it right 95% of the time, you're not going to get stuck with inventory. Especially when you're first starting out. As a brand new land
Sure.
investor, you're worried about like, if I buy it in cash and I'm stuck with it. By the way, I fund deals. I fund land deals. So if the seller says to you, you need to buy this in cash and you need funding, this is my Instagram handle. Reach out to me. I'll send you over to my funding team and we JV partner. We will also help you check your comp. We're going to check your comp. We're going to check the county. We love new land invest. I love nothing more than showing you how to make 20 to 50. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then you're off to the races. And then you may never need me again. You may need me for the first 3 or 4 deals. And then you're making enough money, you can fund your own deals. So great.
I love that. You certainly can tell the wealth of experience you've had in terms of like the creativity and in terms of exits and also the different things that you're involved with. Just quickly here, you mentioned you have hotels and I think you mentioned a restaurant and now a golf course. Like, how involved are you with that? How does that look like when you buy a business? Like, I think that's a whole different conversation to be had, but at a very high level,
Yeah.
it's really interesting because we're all in this space. We are all entrepreneurial, and I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I am involved because I'm a detail Donna and I have a little bit of OCD and I can't really let go of things. So the way that I think about every deal or every business, I have multiple businesses actually that are all under the brand of Bellaterra Partners. That's a front-facing investment group. And then my land business is called Canada North Land Investments. But underneath sort of that overarching brand, so hotels, golf courses, restaurants, whatever it may be, it's really just a business, right? So there's employees, there's your tech stack, there are your systems, there's your SOPs, right? Standing all of that up. I'm usually buying from sellers that don't have any of that in place. So when I underwrite the deal, I only buy deals that are $15,000 a month in cash flow or more. That's it. That's my rule. And if I'm not buying in place cash flow at that level, I don't want it. Why? Because once I get in and I do the underwriting, it might bump around a little bit. It might not be 15. It might only be 10. I'm still going to go ahead and buy it. But I'm going to come in, I'm going to significantly improve it literally on day one. There's just some things that we just shoe it in.
Yep.
And so we're going to take it immediately, probably from 15 right up to 20 or 25. And then I have an entire team. So I would not recommend that you buy businesses or you try to run these unless you were going to make that your job. Right? Make that your job. Now, I also, when my husband started his business, we built it to 5 locations and then we sold our company to private equity. So I've had a full exit. So I know what it looks like to go full cycle, right? To create enterprise value and to have a business that you have to have, there's some sort of chassis there that you're selling. So every asset or business that I buy, I'm creating enterprise value. That's all we're doing. And we're forcing appreciation to create that enterprise value. Now, I don't sell. I don't like to sell anything. Again, I'm a little bit older. I don't want depreciation recapture, right? I just want to sit on it in cash flow forever. So if you think about it, right, you're stacking it like cordwood. Now, maybe we'd sell it and we'd 1031 exchange. Why? Why would I sell a cash flowing asset? Unless it was a brain drain or it really didn't fit within the vertical of what we're doing. But I buy literally anything that makes money. It doesn't matter.
And it sounds like you're not slowing down either. And this sounds like all a game to you, which is amazing. I think you truly have fun. I did want to throw a question to you, and it's not woo-woo, but like you said you felt a little, you're an entrepreneur. And so what does that mean to you? I mean, and I think it's different for everybody, but I'm really interested in terms of you. Like, it's funny because you grew up with parents that are entrepreneurs as well. And you started dabbling in things and you really wanted to make sure you got to express yourself as an entrepreneur. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I didn't know. So my brain is just a little bit different. It's like a massive puzzle, right? Every day there's this huge, messy, horrible, sometimes puzzle that needs to be solved. And you're like, you can't see where the eye is and you can't see where like the cheek is. And you're trying to fit the piece in and it's frustrating. and annoying, but you can't let go of it. I mean, Jessey, you know, right? You're in software. It's driving you crazy. You're trying to find the bug. You can't figure it out, or you're trying to roll out a new feature. It's not working, and it's making you nutty, and you're waking up at 2 a.m. and it's racing in your head. That is just the way I am wired. But when you plug that puzzle piece in and it's the eye to the woman's face and you're like, oh my God, there it is. It's so satisfying.
It is.
But then there's another problem that you have to solve right after it. And so I want to encourage anyone out there that's listening to this, right, that says, I want to get into the land investing space because I want to be the master of my own destiny. Kudos to you. Yes, absolutely. This is where true freedom exists. But I want to caution you. Your idea of like, oh, it's freedom. Like you're going to work harder than you've ever worked. I don't want to be beholden to the man, I don't want to be in a W-2. Well, you're going to be beholden to somebody else, which is going to be to those that are invested, with you. The seller, a lot of times I will buy my assets on seller finance. The seller is my bank, right? Mm-hmm. So we always have to demonstrate that we're doing an awesome job with the asset. Like there's always a man somewhere that is going to be, right, creating havoc in your brain. But if you truly are this crazy entrepreneur, it doesn't matter how many times you get kicked in the teeth and you're bleeding and you're crying and you think you never want to do this again. You're going to wake up the next day and go, let's go. Right. And so if that's you, I want you to know, like, that's me. Like, yeah. I didn't feel in my younger years, I didn't feel like I could completely like explore that. I am not a woo-woo or a mindset girl. In fact, I'm going to tell you something kind of embarrassing. I'd never even heard the term mindset. In my world, right? My world's a little more traditional. Most of my friends, right? They've exited companies or they're physicians or they're attorneys or they're in the corporate world, right? Because of my age, like I live downtown Chicago, like it's just a different world. Like I'm kind of the zany one in my world. But what I would tell you is if that's you, if you wake up and you have that burning desire and that passion, I would encourage you to explore your own values, ideas, and mind. So one of the things that I came with a preconceived notion around money, right? I come from a Canadian family, put our money in RRSPs and we save and we hope we have enough at retirement and you draw down at 71 and a half. I forget what the rules are in Canada. That is just the way that we live our lives. And I don't have a stitch of my 401k in stock at all. None. I cashed it all out. 401k, cashed it all out of stock. And I invest in all sorts of other things that I'm permitted to per my plan. I have a specifically independent written plan.
Right.
And I just didn't even know this existed because nobody in my world had ever told me it existed. Opening your mind, right? So shattering that ceiling, like call it whatever you want, glass ceiling, and opening your mind to a completely different way of living, of earning money, of doing things differently, it can change your life. It did for me. And it was truly watching my mom die. I was like, I have been playing with a thimbleful of what I have to give. And if I don't get busy and swing for the fences, I'm going to wake up one day and wonder why I didn't do those things when I had the chance to. And the worst that can happen is you'll lose all your money. So like play that forward. Oh God, what if I lose all my money? Well, I know how to fish, so I'm never going to go hungry.
I love that.
Right?
I love that. Rhea, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I'm glad you're in my circle. I should tell that story of how you found my phone number, first of all. I was early in the morning at a Starbucks working, and we just got out of some team syncs, and then like, how did they find my personal number? Anyways, how should people find you? I'm sure they can learn a little bit more about your lending. It looks like you got your Instagram there. That's Rhea Campbell _ORD. You mentioned you had a Facebook group. Can anybody join that? How can people be in your world?
I do not have a Facebook group.
Oh, okay,
Find me on Instagram. Yes, you can definitely find me there. I actually run annual events called the Resilient Investor. I had one at my hotel and I teach all sorts of different things. I actually teach mindset. I teach underwriting. I teach you how to buy commercial assets. I teach you how to raise capital. there's this whole mystery around. There's really no mystery to any of this, right? You just have to make yourself a big target. And there's some specific language they have to use. And you have to be very careful and make sure you're compliant with money and selling and security and ending up in an orange jumpsuit. So you have to be mindful of those things. But what I've realized is that surrounding myself with other entrepreneurs and other people that are doing the things that I want to do has been the biggest hack, right?
Mm.
For me, it's allowed me to leapfrog into a completely different place, right? I'm surrounded by, and by the way, I have some of my best friends, right, are now in the investing world, people that I would have never had exposure to. So that's been kind of an amazing byproduct of this, right? I went to Sumner Healy has this great, it's called the Leah Group. And I love Sumner's group. They're just amazing. And I love Sumner. I think he's like 27 or something, but the guy's like the coolest thing ever. And they had a land, I guess it was like a barbecue, or they had a 1-day mastermind thing. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go. And I went and I hung out, and then we went and we did this barbecue, and it was like me and like a whole bunch of guys that were like in their 20s. And it was just amazing, like to have friends. Like, where would I ever be able to like connect with like guys that are in their 20s? And I remember I was showing Rylan, who's actually the co-founder of Land Insights, by the way, an amazing piece of software as well.
Yes.
Pebble is incredible. Couple that with Land Insights, you guys, and like, bam, you got it right there. But I remember showing him my Miro board as my corporate structure. And I blew his mind. I was like, you got to have holding companies to anonymous trusts. Because once you start building real wealth and you have real ownership, people start to notice you. And you need to be careful. And I remember showing that to him. And he looked at me and he said, how'd you learn all of this stuff? And I said, I surrounded myself with people that were smarter than me. Right. And I'm just going to say one thing about finding Jessey's phone number. I have a superpower. I can find anything out about anybody. So like being curious, being connected, and asking for what you want. That's actually how I got your number. I was like, I need to get a hold of Jessey and I need a phone number directly to him. And that's how I got it.
Amazing. Rhea, you are always such a fun time to, have a conversation, whether it's like behind and we just sort of chat it up on the phone, but clearly you are a huge presence. Anyways, I'm glad you shared about how others can connect with you. I'll make sure to leave your link on the show notes. And obviously you mentioned as well, if people want to work with you to get funding, you're there and available. Rhea, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for creating an incredible piece of software. You are a game changer for us and for many of the people that I've helped coach to their first deals. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. All right. Thanks again. Take care.